Welcome to Azure Mythbuster series. This is about our data Mythbusters. What we have done in the past few months is we spoke to many of our customers and our prospects and figured out some of the areas that we feel are myths and people have these notions about some of these aspects related to uh, data being used in certain way in some place only they get better advantage than us. So we compiled a few questions, 5 to 6 questions, and trying to answer or address them from our perspective as to why data is becoming and data drivenness is becoming very important element in the future world, and why data led with platformation thinking that we bring in will help people to apply data in a better way to serve both revenue growth as well as cost optimization areas. So I have Drishti, my colleague in the company. She runs our business development uh, processes at company, and she has compiled this question. So the way we'll run this podcast is that she will focus on seeking out answers for these questions. So once again, I welcome to our podcast of Azure Data Bytes uh, podcast. And Drishti, over to you.
Hi, Shrini. I'm glad to be a part of the Data Mythbuster series. So, I've compiled the questions, and the first question is that why is data analytics associated with digital born companies more than traditional companies?
See, data by nature is available to everybody, right? It is not necessarily associated with only the let's say the new age, the e-commerce companies. But the reason it is associated is they have been much more successful than, let us say, others, because they brought in what is called the data drivenness in their business. They have planned. I can attribute this more like a data first approach, where they felt collecting the data about every aspect of their business and in every step of customer journey. They put that as a means to start their business, and then they made sure that those data is collected and they are able to then um, uh, do or make decisions around whatever data they collected. And that is why you see that they had much more success when it matters to the data driven approaches of business. Now, traditional businesses, obviously, there are examples of companies being successful there as well. However, I think large majority did not invest or have invested in data, but did not invest in how to harmonize and how to utilize this data to make better decisions or to make decisions itself. So that probably is the reason. And then maybe the other aspect is that most people saw data as more of a reactive information rather than use that in terms of an algorithmic approach, where decisions could be much more automated, and therefore the processes, internal process itself, have been speeded up. So I can see there are traditional companies who have applied automation. So if you see a digital bond company which has automated, let us say, loan processing, loan decision making, a customer selection approaches, traditional companies, that when I say traditional companies, I mean companies which have started as with different business model and then now are applying data. Those companies are also now started applying, and I can see that their culture and their aspects are also changing. The only difference I see is data drivenness. While it is a technology solution, it is also a cultural aspect, right? So apart from creating a great platform for data and great platform for analytics, it is also about driving certain kinds of behavioral changes within the employee spectrums, and then making sure that the data is available for them to take those decisions. So I think those aspects, I think people are changing, and that is where the non-digital companies or non-digital bond companies start need to invest both at a technology level as well as the cultural level.
Okay. So, why is it a challenge for traditional companies to be data driven?
Yeah, so I think again the reason, like we discussed last time, it's about first of all finding the journey itself, right? I think most companies have been very good at solving problems, but capturing and tracing the complete journeys has been a challenge for most of these companies. They did not, rather they did not invest in that. So they have not captured that as data. and and then once that ability of capturing the data, like I said earlier, harnessing that data into decisions is another aspect that they did not do. So the challenge is primarily, again, it's about I'm doing very well in what I'm doing already. So if I want to offer better solutions or more solutions, then I need to use data, because most of the new gen customers, most of the customers are moving towards what is called always available scenarios. They are expecting platform based scenarios. They're expecting the products to and the services to be able to recommend as to how they should utilize the services. So there are lots of things that expectations in the market is changing, and therefore obviously companies are also trying to change themselves. The challenge that I see is the ability to capture the data, that entire journey data. So that's one area they have not invested, and that's where they need to invest again. I think that the companies have started looking into this area of how do we invest in this. The second area that I see is they have invested in the past, in the sense there are lots of things, but I think the kind of investment they made is basically is not changing with the kind of business model that they have, in the sense the data is available in some cases, but the business models are changing, but their data systems and data models that have created are fixated, in the sense they are very difficult to change, and that is where they find themselves in some kind of a limbo, in the sense how do I change my data systems, which are not really conceived and then created to be able to quickly change to the business model changes that I am going to adopt to, right? That's another problem. So one is ability to collect the data itself was a problem. Second thing is whatever was collected was is created in such a way that changing it and making it amenable to the new business models is a challenge by itself. So that's the second thing that we see. The third thing is obviously the complete understanding of business processes that are helping the organization do better job with the customer, and trying to see how that processes and which processes are most important that need to be automated, where exactly the data capabilities and where exactly the algorithms driven by AI ML kind of things can help automate or can help proactively provide the employees with better abilities to call out and then try to see customers or help customers. Those are things are not there today, and then companies are investing, but I think the approach might need to be much more journey oriented, much more impact oriented. I think people are doing some pieces of that, but I think if they can conceive this more like how do I create a platform that can change, because data driven means models can keep changing, but my data should be still be able to help any kind of a model change that is going to happen on top of that particular business, right? So to that extent, the platforms have to be designed, data platforms have to be designed such a way that they are flexible to those changes. And the models, the algorithm models are also designed in flexible, and then they are designed in small microservice models, so that if the decision changes, they can just drop one of them and then add whatever is a new thing. So these kind of things are happening in the market. I think the initial companies like the digital bond companies have done that research. They have been able to apply that, and then they have created a path for all of us to adopt to. I think that is where the if we overcome these challenges, which is capturing the data, collecting the right data, right quality of data, then creating the right platform that can keep changing with the business model, and then right analytics platforms that are designed in such a way that they are small pieces and then can be changed as a part of business process changes. And then whenever things have changed, they can change that quickly. If they have do those things, I think they will overcome this challenge and they should be much more successful.
Okay. So, can traditional companies be very good at data analytics approach?
So like fundamental thing that I say is, I think when we say traditional, I think it is not really, we should drop that word. But the idea is, I think every company realizes that digital and data are here to stay. Every company has realized more or less that the digital aspects of every processes and everything that they do is more or less the technology is available today. And therefore everybody is scampering towards making those decisions in terms of how do we convert in this. Of course, everybody has got different priorities in terms of which area to start with. Uh, should it be from a customer end point of view, or should it be at a factory end point of view? And then this industry 4.0 has made sure that no, most of the processes that a company attempts within the 4.1 can be automated. And it also goes beyond, right? I can make my ecosystem of partners, ecosystem of customers. I can connect them with them, and I can make my business processes more transparent for them in terms of engaging with them and then do that. So the digital is definitely shifting this kind of partnership model, and then becoming more connected with all the partners that I need to work with to make my customers journey and my customers experience with me better. So there is what is called experience driven changes, right? So customer experience driven changes is one area that people want to know how to focus on. The second thing is this is about how do I make my business process efficient? So process efficiency based approaches are the other area. Then the third area that people are talking about is how do I look at my business models? Can data become part of my business model, or can data itself be a business model? So there are what is called business model oriented data changes that are happening. So most of the companies are now looking at these are 3 or 4 ways. How do I make my employees much more productive by giving data driven approaches? So we looked at 3 or 4 elements already, right? So experience oriented data dimension, the process oriented data dimension, ecosystem oriented data dimension, the uh, the 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 employee experience oriented data dimension. So and model driven data dimension. If you look at these things, the underneath of this is that you have designed your platforms, you have designed your data serving this particular ecosystems much better, and then people, my view is, at least from whatever we have been seeing, I think people have realized it and people have started recognizing how do we move towards that. I think their primary challenge is in terms of where to start, how to start, and what sort of platforms we need to build. Should I start from first stage of data gathering itself, or should I start with use cases? There is a definite tension between these two things in the sense, should I start from a use case, therefore my users or my business users or my business is happy, or should I start with data and therefore I don't have to repeat whatever data I've collected for business use cases again and again. So there's a that tension, right? Availability, data availability and quality of data versus the use case driven approach. I think there's a good via media, which we call as a data mesh approach, where you actually can do you can approach the use case approach at the same time while you're building out the overall data platform infrastructure for yourself, and you don't have to do one at a time, right? You don't have to focus on only infrastructure part, or you can focus on only use case part, but you can bring them together and then you can build in such a way that the model in between can grow to your business model, can grow to your M&A ambitions, you can grow to any other ambitions, and still make sure that it is flexible and scalable and is ready for future. So I think that approach is what we need to think and then build. And if we build that, and then if the companies are able to build that kind of an approach, I think this tension between create data infrastructure creation approach versus data consumption approach will be sorted out, and then people will find much more success out of that process.
So, how data analytics can help the traditional companies?
See, obviously, like we discussed earlier, so one big area is like, how do I understand my customer itself, right? So today, am I collecting enough data? So question could be, I am collecting some transaction data, what transaction the customer has done, but there are enough data that might be there where they might have done some amount of, let's say, pre-transaction work with you, in the sense they might have not ordered, they might have kept a card, they might have changed the card several times. Are we analyzing that part? Or if you can go to how much research or how much search they have done about you, what sort of things that they have done on the website, how they have behaved on your. So you are trying to look at more how customer is making their decisions is one area, right? So if I know how customers are making, what their needs are, what things they're happy with, what things they're not, you are getting much more clarity about how do we service the customer better, right? So one obvious area is to understand the customer domain and customer behavioral domain in perspective of the products we service or the services we provide to them is one area. The second area obviously is how do I then make sure that my processes, including my partner processes, are harnessed and are optimized or efficient to deliver the customer domain elements, right? So there are multiple areas, like every small aspect, right? Whether you want to make a pricing decision, whether you want to make a the supply chain decision, whether you want to make a package decision, everything can be helped with data and then its ability to let's say automate that, right? So I can use machine learning approaches to automate some of the decisions in terms of now there's someone who is asking for credit, should I give that? Someone is asking for an order with credit, should I give it? Someone who's asking for an order, is it easy to supply at the cost? And what are the cost implications? I can automate these things, right? So I can see most of these people, most of the companies are now realizing the potential that they have in both understanding customer behaviors and in also looking at what are the areas that they potentially can optimize using this data and what are the areas of the processes that they can make it intelligent by automating those things using data as a capture. So I think there are various ways and every department, every segment in the in their in what they serve has potential to use data to be able to make the processes as well as their processes intelligent, their models future ready, and their customers much more satisfied. So I think opportunity is huge for them.
Okay. So it leads us to next question, that who all can benefit from data analytics?
Right. I think partly I have started answering that. So in the sense like every aspect of the business, right? So whether you are talking about partnering alliances, you need to know who are the right partners that you want to partner with. You need to know how we can connect with each other to be able to give and which decisions between us need to be done through these processes, and then we are satisfied with that approach. You look at the sales and then the sales organization can benefit from sales and marketing organization, if I might want to add in, can benefit from how customers behave and what way they can help customers select or make decisions in their selection of their products. Marketing can find out what are the other needs that we can service, and then are there any other things that are left out and that we can add value in providing customer service, and then which area the customer is struggling with their products, and then what can we do with that product. You can transfer that information to R&D and then help R&D to sync and then achieve better results with their product using the data. A great example is, let's say someone is using a simple audio equipment, or they're using a headphone equipment. What sort of things they listen to, right? Whether they are in online mode or in the offline mode, what kind of things they are listening. Can I capture that information? Can I understand the customer behavior in what times of the day they are going to listen to this? And then can I use that to shape how my relations can be with my the content providers, how my relations could be with my, let's say, service providers, probably people who repair, who basically have to provide services to the end customers when they are using this equipment. How in offline mode also I can proactively provide the same music that they like to listen at a time, and then probably drop that into their equipment or drop that into their headsets. Those are things that are possible, and people are now started realizing that there is potential to look at offline mode, online mode, help to and suggestions to the customer. So those are things I think we're seeing people are now becoming smart about it and trying to create smart processes, smart customer rhythms in that approach. So every department in that sense, I can feel, including, let's say the kind of talent you want to recruit, including the kind of let's say the manufacturing process, right? I think big area industry for all manufacturing processes are now getting connected with data. They are becoming almost connected factory systems, connected quality systems. So there are many things that are happening. I think that helps in achieving smartness across the company and becoming smarter in dealing with the customer and customers domain areas.
Yes. So what should the traditional companies do to become more data driven?
I think, like I said, there is a strategy piece of this, which is what are the aspects I want to focus. It's more like I have to do many things, but in what order, in what sequence I want to do. I think it's one area. What kind of business models I want. So those are strategy areas. To support the strategy areas, I think the technology investment in terms of platforms and data platforms have to be thought through. And then, like I said earlier, the tension between use case led approach or the data infrastructure platform approach, which approach, or should it be both approaches, that kind of thing. Because if you do only one thing, you are delaying the capability of applying. For example, if you're only focusing on infrastructure part, you're delaying the ability to deliver intelligence or ability to deliver better analytics to the market or to your employees or to make your process intelligent. But if you're going to be only use case driven, then each time you're spending extra effort in terms of getting the right data, collecting the right data, and then there's a lot of wastage in that. So identifying the two segments is very important here. That's one thing that we need to look at. The uh, the the that is where I think technology and creating a right kind of roadmap, trying to find what's the best way you can address the strategic direction that the business had already laid out. To that, what is the best way to put the platforms in place, and then the analytics platforms, or your reporting platforms, or your intelligence platforms, or your data platforms. All those things we need to look at. So that's one second area that you need to. Last, obviously, is enable the entire employees in terms of how and which areas the data can help them, and which areas data is making its own decisions. But at the end of the day, data is based on data, right? So if the data is changing, the data is shifting, the employee should be enabled to make sure that, hey, this algorithm or this information needs to be now upgraded for it to become a lot more efficient for me. So they need to be available, they need to be aware, they need to be made aware, they need to be become a lot more data efficient themselves. So that kind of culture change is also need to be invested into. So there are three separate areas. One is how do I apply data into my business is one part. How then I create that kind of infrastructure and that kind of consumption patterns is the second part. Third part is how do I enable my employees to make sure that they know that these are the areas where data is supporting them, and these are the areas that they need to make their own judgments is the third area. And then that is what I call as enablement of employees, or digitizing the employees in that sense. So all the three things have to be done for the companies to harness best results out of the system.
Okay. Thank you so much, Srini. So this brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you all for listening. I look forward to hearing your comments and feedback. Do join us for the next Mythbuster. Stay tuned. And if you have any questions, please reach out to Azure Help Desk. Thank you.
Thank you, Drishti. Thank you. Thank you for today.